Hey guys, welcome back. In the last video, we just installed a new apron or farmhouse sink, and we have a temporary situation to hold the faucet because we need new countertops in here. So I'm going to start sealing and staining those outside because everything I'm going to be using has a lot of harmful fumes and you don't want the kids breathing that in. Now I've got this butcher block countertop here from Lowe's. This is the Hevea wood. It looks really nice. It's a pretty easy wood to work with. And you'll see in just a little bit, it accepts the stain really well, turns out great, so I'm really pleased with it. I did a quick search and I haven't seen any videos, content from people using this wood or showing how it turned out, so I hope this is helpful if you guys are wondering what kind of wood we used. Now I'm going to be using gloves today. I have a pre-stained wood conditioner that stickers placed perfectly so you can't see what it is, but that's what this is. It's a pre-stain. It's supposed to help the wood absorb the stain more evenly. I've got the wood stain, a cloth to spread that out, and then some polyurethane. So this is the first time I've used wood conditioner before, and it turned out really nice. I'm really impressed with this, and I would 100% recommend this step. It soaks into the wood and basically seals it so that the stain doesn't overly absorb into some of the softer parts of the wood, and it becomes a lot more even overall. And so this works really well on the end grain. The end grain is basically just the ends of the board. When you look at it, you can kind of see the rings of the tree, and that absorbs moisture a whole lot more than the sides of the boards. If you've used stain before, when you go over that end grain of the wood, it ends up soaking in and being several shades darker than the rest of the piece. You'll definitely want to read the directions and follow the amount of dry time that you have for each coat, but it does recommend to put 2 or 3 coats on some of the areas that will absorb moisture faster than the rest. And so I'll put 2 coats on the ends of these countertops to make sure that it doesn't absorb too much. Now, one of the countertops that I purchased was in really rough shape. The rest, I didn't have to sand at all. It was perfectly smooth on both sides too. But this one looked like it hadn't been sanded down at all. You can see some nicks in this where the wood broke out while they were planing it down. Typically that would be sanded down smooth, so I would just check for that if you can. These were all wrapped up in plastic, so I couldn't even see the quality of the wood. So that's a little disappointing, but I'll spend probably an hour sanding this down. I have a few stages of sandpaper going from the roughest to the smoothest, and I will just work through stages getting that sanded down to match the rest. I've heard that in some cases the countertops will have sort of an A and a B side, one side sanded down more than the other, so it may be helpful to flip it over and see which side's the best. In this case, both sides were very rough, so I didn't really have a choice. Now I'm going to come back with a little bit of CA glue and fill in some of those chips where the sanding won't even cover that up. I don't want to sand it that deep, so I'll fill that in with some filler and then sand that down. You won't even notice once this is all stained. Now that I finally have this sanded down as smooth as the rest, I'm going to go ahead and put the conditioner on, and then I'm ready for the next step. Now a little tip, if you aren't sure exactly what stain you want to use, this is a great time to flip it over to the rough side or the side you are going to put on the bottom and just test out a few small sections of what kind of stain you want. We ended up going with this darker stain. And so I'll cover the entire bottom of each of these countertops. One thing you're going to want to make sure you do is to stain and seal all of the countertops, top and bottom. This seems like an extra step and a waste, but it's actually really important because if you don't seal the bottom, the moisture can soak in underneath the countertop. The top will be sealed, so it's stable. It won't allow any moisture in. The bottom will start to absorb that humidity and expand and cause the whole countertop to warp, and that will ruin everything. You'll have to replace the countertops. It'll be a big mess. Now this still is the bottom, so you don't have to worry about getting it as smooth or as perfect. So 1 to 2 coats of polyurethane, and I'm going to call it finished on the bottom. The top is a different story. I'm going to go through a few coats of the polyurethane and sand in between each of the coats to make sure that this is nice and smooth and I don't have any imperfections. No matter how careful I was, I still found some drips around the outside edge of this countertop, so I'd recommend doing the top of the countertop, and then as you're finishing up, just go around the countertop one more time and make sure there's no drips along the bottom edge, because that's just going to add extra sanding for each step if you don't get those drips. So in between the first and second coats of polyurethane, I used this 220 grit sandpaper and very lightly sanded this down. Then I'll put the third coat of polyurethane on this, and it's getting really close to being finished. There's hardly any imperfections once this is dried, but I'm going to come back with 600 grit sandpaper, which is really smooth, but it'll still leave some scratches on this polyurethane. I'll go over top of that. That will smooth this out really well, but it's going to need one final coat of polyurethane, and then I'll sand it one last time. Once I install it, I have 2000 grit sandpaper that I'll use with a little bit of water and wet sand this to make sure any of those rough spots that might be left get smoothed out and we have a nice even finish. Now these countertops are pretty much done. All I need to do now is cut them to size and install them. In my next video, I'll be showing you guys how to do that. But once you cut this, it'll be repeating the same steps as you did before, just on a smaller area. I'll seal that with a conditioner, come back with the stain around where that sink was cut out, and then come back with polyurethane and seal that over top and do several coats. This will cause some fumes in the house, but I had to do this in place. It's such a small section that I was able to do this and have the exhaust fan on in the kitchen and took all the fumes out. Well, that just about finishes up the video for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you found it helpful, let me know down in the comment section and hit that like button down below. If you guys want to see more videos, I have a lot of content on my channel. Go check that out and maybe hit that subscribe button if you have not already. If you guys are interested in seeing, like I mentioned before, how to install these countertops, I'm going to be doing that in my next video. Stay tuned and I'll upload that one soon. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. I want to give a big shout out to all my supporters on Patreon. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it, and it's helping me continue to make videos like this one today. If anyone's interested, I'll leave the link to my Patreon page down in the description below this video, and you can go check that out if you want.